Alright, so in this video here I'm going to show you how to change the strings on your acoustic guitar. Now you probably know when you need to change the strings by looking at the strings, and they'll have like a black tint to them. Other times you'll also hear the strings sound deader than they should, or just won't sound like it tunes up properly. Like you'll always find notes out of tune. It just almost feels like your playing is off. So I always find when I feel like my playing is off, if I change my strings, everything basically fixes everything, right? So it sounds better to your ear, so then therefore it sounds like you're playing better. So what we're going to do, the first thing we're going to do with this is take the strings off. Now for this step we're going to need a trusty string winder to make this really quick. Now you can do this by hand, but I'm telling you this will take a long time. Might as well invest in getting one of these things. They're not that expensive. What it will do is helps you wind the tuners a lot quicker. So what we're going to do for this, and I always like to do it this way, is loosen the strings off just a bit, not too much. You don't want to do the full string at the start. You want to just get the strings loosened so we can pull out the strings from the bridge. And I'll show you that step next. We're just loosening off the strings to make it easier to pull out, and so the strings won't snap back at us. You can always just undo the entire strings, but that's extra work that you don't need to do, and I prefer not to do myself. Okay, so there we go. I've loosened the strings a little bit so they're all floppy. What we're going to do is go down to the bridge here, and at the bottom of your string winder, you should probably see, hopefully you can see it on there, there's like a little gap, and you see it better there. Okay, so there's a little plug there. Now what this will do is it actually reaches underneath your bridge pins, so these are what hold your strings in place. You can actually pull up the bridge pins with them. Now some of them might be more stubborn than others, take a little more work to get out. As we go out, there we go, we got the bridge pin out, okay? Now so we do this for all the strings, and sometimes it's recommended to not take out all the strings in your guitar at once because it'll affect the neck tension. But for this one, I'm not too worried. I'm just going to take them all off. But if you have a more expensive instrument, do this process one string at a time. So as you watch this video, you want to do them just one string at a time. So I go through here, take all the bridge pins out. Make sure you keep them in a spot that's easy to find so they don't roll under a couch or under a chair. You can't find them. Okay, so see how this little tool right there makes this job really easy. No stress. Okay, so now all the strings are loosened, we can take them out, and what we want to do is just take them off from the tuners, put them somewhere where they're not going to get in your way. So be careful of this process because you can actually get stuck by some of these strings, which I always do, and they actually go into your finger and they sort of hurt. So you want to do it just carefully. Alright, so now all the strings are off. What I like to do is just wrap them up so they get out of the way. Fold them around each other, and you can put them in the garbage can, okay? This way they won't go everywhere. It sort of keeps them together. So the next step we're going to do, we're going to get our pack of strings out. Take all the strings out. Now each package here, depending on what you're using, will tell you which string was within this package. So I'm using Martin Lights, and so for example, on the first one it tells me I have the first E string and the fourth D string, so string 1 and string 4. Okay, so we'll put those in to the proper spot. So string 1 will go all the way on my guitar down here. String 4 will go up to the 4th string. So as long as you know where those strings go, you should be good. Okay, so I'm going to do this for each string. I'll show you these first two, and then I'll do the rest of them, and we'll come back to this. So the first string, for example, will go in here, and we're going to put the bridge pin in after it, okay? So the bridge pin's going to go in. What we're going to do is we're going to yank up on the string a little bit to get it tight into there. So there we go. Next one, pull it up. What you want to do is just make sure it's snug. So when you pull up on the string, what it does is it locks the bridge pin in place, okay? So there you go. First two strings in place. See you back in a minute. Alright, so now we've got all the strings loaded into the bridge here. Okay, they're all pulled up tight. We're going to put these on one at a time, okay? And I'll show you how to wind these one at a time. Now, we'll start off with the 6th string. Depending on who is teaching you how to do this, they'll tell you to start with a certain string. I don't think it matters. To me, I just put every string on from the 6th string to the 1st string. But you can do whatever order you wish, okay? And what you want to do is make sure that the post down here is lined up properly, so straight, basically parallel, so you can put the string through it like that, okay? Basically the thickest 4 strings are wound. what we're going to do is follow this step for these 4 strings. Okay, so we're going to wind it through, pull it tight, make sure the bridge pin doesn't come out. And what we're going to do is we're going to pull it tight, but then pull the string back 1 fret from the nut. Okay, so from the nut here, we're going to pull it back 1 fret to give you some slack. What I do next is I notch the string at the end here, just so you don't lose that spot. Okay, now this is where the string winder comes in handy next. So you have to hold the string down. What we're going to do is we're going to start winding it. So you want to make sure every wind is always on the inside of each of the tuners, okay? So you always wind along the inside, not the outside. If you wind along the outside, what's going to happen is it puts too much tension on the outside of the nut, and you can actually snap your nut. And I know someone who's done that. So we're going to go up like this here, wind it, and so see, I'm coming along the inside, okay? You see that? And we want to hold the string down because each wind has to be underneath the previous one, okay? So you're going to wind every single wind in a downward spiral. Now as you do this, you might want to check your bridge pins to make sure they're not coming out, because sometimes they do. Alright, so we're going to put that in, but we're not going to tighten up fully. Now what we're going to do is you can either do this after all of them are done or after each one. I like to do them after each one so I don't get pricked. I'm going to cut off with wire cutters the end of the string. Okay? Makes it nice and simple, then you can just throw that string out. So I'm going to do this process on the other strings, let you watch this. And what I'll do is I'll adjust the camera so you can actually see this straight on, okay? Alright, so here we are, zoomed in straight on so you can see. So what I'm going to do is wind the 5th string through now. So we pull this through, okay? That's through there. And we're going to pull back 1 fret, okay? And notch the string. And this is where I make it look really easy, but this part will probably be a little tough. So we're going to hold down the string and wind it through here. Make sure your bridge pin doesn't come out. Just so happened with mine. Okay, we're not going to wind it up full way. We're not going to tune it yet. Just going to get the strings in there. Fourth string in. Okay, pull it tight. Pull it back 1 fret. Here we go. Wind it up, making sure each wind is underneath the previous one. Make sure your bridge pin doesn't come out. Okay, and this is where I cut off the string just so I don't hurt myself there. Alright. Okay, 3rd string. Now this is where we go to the opposite side. So this is going to be the most awkward part when you go to the 3rd string, 2nd string, and 1st string. Trying to get used to actually changing the way you're winding and holding on the other side of the guitar. But so this one right here, the 3rd string is a wound string still, so we're going to pull back 1 fret, notch the end so we don't know where, so we don't lose that spot. And here we're going to wind the opposite way. So this is really awkward when you first get you doing this. After a while though, it becomes second nature. Okay, winding it right through. Making sure each wind again is underneath the previous one. So it's nice and clean. Okay. We'll try to get away with another string before cutting off the end there. Threading it through. So now for these unwound strings, they don't have as much to grab onto itself. So I like to pull back 1.5 frets for this one. And then notch it there. So same thing except 1.5. So just a little more slack. So you get a few more winds on the post. Oop. Here we go. Make sure your bridge pin doesn't come out there. So we're not tightening it all the way, we're just going sort of halfway. And last and final string. So for this one I'll try to give you a different angle just so you can see it from my perspective. Alright, so here we go. 1st string. Pulling it through. We're going to pull back 1 fret. Notch the end. Alright. So for this one, should have done a little more slack for that one, usually 1.5, but it should be fine. Alright, so here we go, you can see that wind in there. I'm holding it to make sure each wind is underneath the previous one. Make sure your bridge pin doesn't come out. Alright, there you go. Now, if you're ever worried that you didn't give it enough slack on the string and you're worried it's going to pop out, what I always do, I'll take this, the excess string, and wrap it underneath the string, and then bend it over. So what it does is it grabs onto itself there. So it sort of did like a knot there almost. Okay, now from there, we cut off each of the strings. All right. Okay, so at this point, we got all the strings on and we're ready to tune. What you want to do first is stretch out the string. So you're going to pull up on the string, just to make sure you stretch it out. Make sure the bridge pins aren't going to fly out at you. Okay? And from there, you're going to reference another guitar or something like an online tuner to tune your guitar out. But there you go. Strings are wound. Winds are nice and clean. That's the most important part there. Clean winds, so everything stays in tune. Okay? So what you want to do from there is just tune your guitar the way you would. But if you use a reference tone, it's a lot better because you can get close to that tone that you want instead of trying to use a tuner and going through everything. So right now it's going to be, who knows where that note is, right? You don't know where that note is. Unless you have a really good ear, perfect pitch, you can grab it. Alright, so from there on, use an online tuner and tune up.